are back. What's going on, folks? Kerry Crowley hanging out with you, an abbreviated sports phone KNBR this evening as we're hanging out until 9 o'clock. The Giants lose in big fashion, 11-5 to the Washington Nationals. They go 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. An atrocious performance. A night after just about all of our callers said this team's got to do something about its timely hitting. This team has to do something about its approach with runners in scoring position. The Giants go 1 for 14. I mean, to sum things up, they're down 6 runs in the 9th inning. Tyler Fitzgerald gets on base because that's what Tyler Fitzgerald does. Doubles, puts a runner in scoring position to lead off the inning. 3 straight outs to end the ball game. Against a Washington Nationals reliever in Tanner Rainey, who entered tonight with an ERA above 6 and was basically just pumping fastballs to make sure the game got over. Even in that situation, the Giants couldn't drive a run in. 57-58 on the season. The night after we start to talk about what's possible, they're back to 500 for the first time in more than 2 months. This Giants team blows its early 4-0 lead and loses in blowout fashion. Now to add on to all of this, what a day in the Bay Area sports world. Day starts with reports from The Athletic, Shams Charania, Anthony Slater, that Lauri Markkanen will sign a long-term deal with the Utah Jazz and remain with the club where he's become an all-star. So those hopes that the Warriors had of landing Lauri Markkanen and maybe salvaging a bit of this offseason, those have been dashed. And then on top of that, you've got the Brandon Aiyuk situation. We've discussed this so much on the KNBR airwaves, and I'll do so throughout the evening as well because it is the dominant storyline in the Bay Area sports world right now. But Aiyuk, as the framework of deals that he's reviewing, Adam Schefter of ESPN just moments ago said that the New England Patriots are no longer interested in a trade possibility with the San Francisco 49ers. But here's what I say about that. Adam Schefter is as plugged in as anyone in the industry. But last night, we heard from a very plugged-in reporter in Matt Mayoko that the Steelers weren't interested. And now today, folks saying the Steelers might be back in on Brandon Aiyuk. So all of that is to say a bunch of teams, if the price comes down, will be in on Brandon Aiyuk. But Brandon Aiyuk's been pretty adamant. His price isn't coming down. So there's a number of different ways this unfolds. I hope he ends up back with the 49ers. But again, a lot of different subjects to discuss this evening, the first of which is the San Francisco Giants, and we will be doing that when we come back. We're starting with Giants. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Please do dial us up. Give us your thoughts on tonight's 11-5 loss to the Washington Nationals. Brandon Aiyuk talk as well. You're listening to KNBR 104.5-680, the sports leader.
This is where we feed the faithful. Sports Phone, KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the Sports Leader.
Our situational at-bats were terrible again tonight. That's been a problem here for, a couple weeks now. And, runners in scoring position, but it's the cheapies that you can control that, you're trying to get a ball in the air, you're just trying to get a run home, it doesn't take a hit to do it. That's been frustrating.
Needless to say, the Giants' execution with runners in scoring position frustrating just about everyone these days. I feel like if Bob Melvin was out there tonight, he could call in to Sports Phone KNBR and let us know exactly how he feels, because he essentially did. He's not afraid to speak his mind after his team turns in a frustrating performance, and the Giants did just that this evening against the Washington Nationals, going 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. Just a brutal night at the plate after the Giants started with so much hope. You get off to the great start. Aiyuk Ramos homers in the first inning. You've got Mackenzie Gore on the ropes. Michael Conforto homers left on left, a 3-run job for the second consecutive night. The Giants went up 4-0 early, and you feel like this team, with the way that it has played over the last few weeks, has some momentum, has the opportunity to put the Nationals away early. Excited about getting Hayden Birdsong back on the mound. I have loved what I've seen from Birdsong on the young season, but he just didn't have it tonight. Pitches weren't sharp. Execution was nowhere close this evening. A lot of issues tonight for Giants pitchers, staying in and around the strike zone. And ironically, the pitch that hurt Birdsong the most was a pitch that really wasn't close to being a strike, the 3-run home run that he gave up to C.J. Abrams, who went up well above the strike zone, almost eye level, to launch one into the seat. So Giants lose 5-4 this evening. I go back to the third inning. Giants have second and third, no one out, and Patrick Bailey lines out. Casey Schmidt flies out. Matt Chapman makes an out. Fourth inning. You've got Aiyuk Ramos at third base, one out, and Matt Chapman strikes out looking. And it's at bats and situations like that where you've got the opportunity to break the game open, or at that point of the game, compared to last night when they could have broken the game open, but that point of the game this evening, they could have gotten back into it, made it a back and forth affair. Instead, it went back with the Giants leading 4-0 and then forth the Washington Nationals, and the Giants could never answer. An utterly frustrating performance in a season full of them. And I think that's the greatest issue for this Giants team right now, is we've been searching for an identity. And last night I talked about this a little bit. After Logan Webb turns in 5 2/3 innings of one-run ball, the Giants, through the first time of the rotation since Farhan Zaidi came out and said that he thinks that the Giants have one of the best rotations in baseball. Outside of Kyle Harrison, I thought for the first time you could really see the Giants starting to see and form this identity in the second half of the season. It was around the starting pitching. But tonight, Birdsong goes 2+, giving up 6, and the other identity, the identity of the Giants who show up probably more often than we'd like to admit, it's the identity of a team that can't execute with runners in scoring position. And whether the Giants get to the point where they want to be at the end of this season, which is in the playoffs, which is making the playoffs as a wild card team, or failing to make the playoffs, finishing under 500, finishing in disappointing fashion for the third consecutive season, by the time the final 47 games are up, I think we're going to have a pretty firm grasp on whether this team will be led by its starting pitching or whether this team in 2024 will be characterized by its inability to come through with runners in scoring position. Because there are glimmers of hope on some evenings, and then there's the doom and gloom like tonight, the reminder that the Giants are where they are because they've been like this for far too long this season. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Your thoughts on the San Francisco Giants, welcome. Your thoughts on the San Francisco 49ers, the Golden State Warriors, welcome. A big day in Bay Area sports. Of course, Brandon Aiyuk situation, top of mind for just about everyone right now. We're going to head to Michael in Petaluma. Michael in Petaluma, you're on Sports Phone. Michael, how's it going this evening?
Great. How you doing?
Oh, doing well on my end. What's on your mind tonight, Michael?
I don't know. I'm hearing a lot about the Brandon Aiyuk situation, and I just can't help myself but reflect back on Juju Smith-Schuster when he was on the other side of Antonio Brown in that offense. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. When Aiyuk is, the third or fourth option even in the passing game, I just feel like there's so many guys that can fill that role. Is he really worth the money he's asking for? Obviously, on paper, he got those numbers, but I think he's benefiting more as an individual from being on the team than the team is benefiting from him being on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought, and one that I hadn't considered in large part because I do really believe that Brandon Aiyuk is a tier 1 receiver in the NFL. I think that he's a top 5, top 10 guy right now, and I don't blame him at all for wanting to get paid the way he is. But, you look at Juju Smith-Schuster's career arc, Michael, and when he was playing opposite Antonio Brown, 22 years old, I pulled up the numbers, 111 catches for 1,426 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, that was an offense that was flying with Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown when those two were together on the field. And when he went elsewhere, Kansas City, New England, when Antonio Brown went elsewhere, Juju Smith-Schuster's production dropped off. So it's an interesting theory. I think that Aiyuk has more raw talent. I think that Aiyuk will ultimately succeed wherever he plays next season. I've been on the record saying I still hope it's San Francisco, although I don't have much hope right now. But I can understand why you feel that way. I think that we will see, and that's the great thing. And it may be why the 49ers don't want to take the risk, because they recognize that, hey, he might benefit a little bit from playing in our system and around Deebo Samuel, around George Kittle, around Christian McCaffrey. I still think, though, that Aiyuk is the number one option when the 49ers need yards in the passing game as opposed to the running game. And it'll be a fascinating dynamic to watch as this season unfolds, regardless where he is.
Right. I'd be curious to look into which cornerback is typically covering him. Is he getting the number one coverage, or is Deebo getting the number one coverage? Because that's where Juju struggled, once they shifted that number one coverage to him and he was the focal point. I could see him being super successful in a system like the Browns. They're very similar, run heavy. Most of the focus is going to be in the trenches. I think that sort of system where he can block upfield, that's where he belongs, right? I don't think he belongs in a Justin Jefferson type role where he's getting 20 catches on route running.
No, honestly, no one belongs in a Justin Jefferson type role other than Justin Jefferson,
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff, Michael. Thank you for the call. Appreciate your thoughts. We do have to hit a quick break here. We are going to take some Giants calls on the other side. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Your frustration with the San Francisco Giants, this 11-5 loss, a missed opportunity. Can't believe how many times I've said that this season. Feels like just about every other show. And, well, it might be every other show with a team that's 57-58, missing opportunities to take advantage of some momentum. I'm Kerry Crowley. This is Sports Phone KNBR. Your calls on the other side when we come back. You're on KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
What's up, nation? Dial the digits and dive in. 415-808-KNBR. Sports Phone KNBR continues right here and on the all-new KNBR app.
Do you think he looked a little bit off his game before that, or did that rattle him a little bit?
No, it looked like he was, we've seen him kind of, like I said, just kind of spotty with the fastball, but the breaking stuff always gets him back in it. They were on his breaking ball, felt like they were maybe sitting a little bit breaking ball, but really never established anything at any point in time in the game that he could really kind of lean on.
Nothing worked for the Giants tonight. Hayden Birdsong, 2 innings, 6 runs allowed. He gets pulled early. The Giants go 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. Again, continuing to struggle. And then they cough up that 4-0 lead they have. So just all around a bad baseball game. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Enough from me. It's time to go out to you on the phone lines. Bruce in San Jose. Bruce in San Jose. You're on Sports Phone. Bruce, how's it going this evening?
It's going pretty good. Thank you, Kerry. I appreciate you taking the call. How are you doing?
Oh, doing well on my end. What's on your mind tonight, Bruce?
So, the Giants and frustrated.
Yeah.
It was almost laughable the other day when I heard Farhan say, Giants have the best starting rotation in baseball. Like, sure, maybe on paper some of the names are, but, certainly the execution hasn't been there at any point of the year. But what is more frustrating is really what the main theme of today was. 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position, man.
Yeah,
that's brutal, right?
It's unacceptable. 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position, and even in the situation in the 9th inning where the game's decided, but you've got that leadoff runner out there, and no one can bring him in against a reliever with an ERA above 6, shoving fastballs. That, to me, explains the way the Giants' season has gone. That, to me, tells me exactly why they're under 500,
No, exactly. And I told the call screener, I don't know his name, but it reminded me of that the old Dennis Green football coach quote, from years ago. They are what we thought they were. For me, going into the season, then it's like you want to crown them. Like, it's a good YouTube clip for anyone who hasn't seen it. But anyway, for anyone that had true, hopeful, deep into the playoff aspirations, to me, I don't know. I don't think those were truly realistic. I think what is playing out how the roster is constructed.
I see where you're going with this, Bruce. Thank you for the call. I see where you're going with it. And look, the Giants won 79 games last season, and then they went out and they spent $200+ million. I think it was fair to expect an 86 to 88 win season when you bring in Blake Snell and Matt Chapman and Jorge Soler and Jordan Hicks and Jung-Hoo Lee, which is why this season's so frustrating, which is why they failed to live up to expectations. I don't blame anyone who thought that the Giants would be better this season, who thought that this would be a playoff team. In fact, I was one of those people. But right now, you look at this team, 115 games in, and it's not pretty. Let's go to Jason in Turlock. Jason in Turlock, you're on Sports Phone. Jason, how's it going this evening?
Good. How you doing?
Doing well on mine. What's on your mind tonight?
I just got a quick question. Why do you think Luciano hasn't gotten any playing time at second base with Casey Schmidt struggles at the plate lately?
Yeah, here's the reason. I think the Giants are using this as an opportunity, this final 50-game stretch, to showcase Luciano's strengths and potentially trade him this offseason. And anytime you put him in the field, you're potentially taking some of that trade value away, because other teams right now, they might think, hey, we can mold this guy as a second baseman, or we can find this guy a position. I don't think the Giants trust him at second base, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, that would make sense, yeah. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the call. And look, the Giants may well keep Marco Luciano. I said this last night. It's 50-50 right now, whether they keep him and make him a major part of next year's lineup, or whether they look to use him as the centerpiece of a trade this offseason. But I think if you're trying to up Marco Luciano's value, you see how he does against Major League pitching. Remember, he's only 22, and you keep him off the field because you know that glove was a liability at the position that he played the most in the minor leagues. He's only just learning second base. I can't imagine that's entirely comfortable for him right now and entirely comfortable for the Giants right now. Let's go out to Daryl in Oakland. Daryl in Oakland, you're on Sports Phone. Daryl, how's it going this evening?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How about you, man?
Oh, doing well on my end. What's on your mind tonight, Daryl?
Okay, so I just tonight was Birdsong's first. He kind of botched it tonight. He didn't have the command. He didn't have the control, and the Giants were spotted 4 runs early on, and on any given night, 4 runs is like a godsend for the Giants, and and I think the pitching, had Birdsong been on his game, like we had seen him several games before, I think this would have been a no doubter. But because Birdsong was off, and my question is, did they send him down and then bring him back up like so quickly, or was he up and they just kind of passed through him one time in the rotation?
Well, he was optioned, so he was off. He was optioned and off the roster technically, but he was not away from the team during that time period. He wasn't making starts at AAA Sacramento or AA Richmond. He was just off the roster because they wanted to get to 26 guys, and he has options right now. So they've been in a jam from a pitching perspective, trying to bring these guys back from the injured list, and Robbie Ray and other guys as well. So it was just a numbers game, and he was still with the team.
And so, but my feeling is, you're messing with a pitcher's psyche. You're messing with his confidence. He feels like he's part of the team. He's doing well, and for some reason he's just doing phenomenal for those streak of games. And then all of a sudden tonight he has a bad game, and I thought Giants put up 4 runs in the beginning. I thought that I was starting to think, oh, this is a good night.
Yep.
And then he's not on point. He's missing, and he's missing high. He's throwing high sliders, etc., all this other stuff, and he clearly doesn't have it. And that was disappointing. So I really don't think it was. I don't think we can really. I mean, Giants 14 guys on base. They didn't capitalize, but they had a 4-run lead. And generally with that, you would think that, with the Giants pitching so far as it's, kind of been, they would be able to pull one out, and it didn't happen tonight. And that was my feeling about it.
No, I agree with you on a lot of that, Daryl. Thank you for the call. Appreciate your thoughts. And the one thing that I really do agree with strongly on, Daryl, is Hayden Birdsong had earned the right to be on the team. And by optioning him, I don't think you're messing with his psyche, because he knows that he's around and he's going to be pitching. The Giants have it all planned out. You're messing with his paycheck. The guy's not making major league money when he's down at AAA or AA or wherever he had technically been optioned to. Even though he was in the plans and in the rotation, you're messing with his money, and I don't like that at all. So I think that that's something they've got to figure out moving forward. On the other side, it's time to transition and talk 49ers football. We're going to talk Brandon Aiyuk, talk about this trade situation. Look, Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports Bay Area has just said on Twitter, he goes, the Patriots had an agreement in place with the 49ers and a large offer to Brandon Aiyuk on the table, but Aiyuk did not show interest in going there. You know what? We've heard a number of different reports like this over the last 24 hours. The Steelers were out. Now they're back in. The Browns have been firmly in this thing the whole time. There could be other teams who jump into this mix. I don't know. All I know is this. I'm going to treat the Brandon Aiyuk situation as if it's fluid. I'm going to treat this as if he could still go anywhere, change his mind at any time, because guess what Brandon Aiyuk has done all offseason? He's changed his mind a lot. He ultimately did not request a trade before the NFL draft, then he did request a trade this summer, and now he's doing a hold-in. So who knows how this all ends? All I know is I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, and I wish the 49ers would find a way to keep him, because I have loved watching Brandon Aiyuk in a 49ers uniform. More on that on the other side. You're listening. Sports Zone KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Nighttime is the right time for Sports Phone KNBR. Let's go on the sports leader. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, we're back here on Sports Phone KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock here on Tuesday evening. Been a pleasure to spend the beginning of the week with you, even if the news coming from Santa Clara and the world of the San Francisco 49ers isn't all that good right now. A reminder that before we get into this segment, Sports Phone KNBR is presented by Industrial Metal Supply, online at industrialmetalsupply.com. It's metal made easy. I think over the last two nights, I've tried to make it pretty darn clear that I am 100% in favor of the 49ers doing whatever they can to keep Brandon Aiyuk. I think that they have misjudged this situation, not just ever so slightly, but pretty significantly, and that no matter what kind of a trade the 49ers would make involving Brandon Aiyuk, it would significantly weaken the club entering the 2024 season. And so I don't see a Brandon Aiyuk trade in a resolution to his contract situation, his hold-in with the 49ers, his trade request from the 49ers. I don't see any of this as a positive for this organization. I think that Brandon Aiyuk clearly demonstrated last season that he was Brock Purdy's most trusted target. Going up over 1,300 yards last year, he was the guy who can run those routes over the middle of the field. He can run in traffic. He is someone who can get deep and intermediate routes and get to those spots where Brock Purdy needs to feed him the football. He's also been a great blocker on the perimeter. And put simply, the 49ers offense will take a major hit if he ultimately successfully agrees to a trade and an extension with one of these other teams that have been courting him over the last day or so. And I think it's just a really disappointing potential end to this saga, because for so long we've been accustomed to the 49ers essentially getting these guys who have played such significant roles for the franchise under contract when they've needed to. Yes, Nick Bosa's holdout went a little longer than everyone would have liked. Yes, Deebo Samuel got more money than the 49ers probably would have liked to have given him. But for the most part, the 49ers have done a very good job at retaining their top talent. They had to make the very difficult decision, probably a miscalculation, on trading DeForest Buckner way back when. They, of course, let Eric Armstead go this offseason. You can't keep absolutely everyone when you are a team that is brimming with talent. But the 49ers are a team led by head coach Kyle Shanahan that has found its identity on the offensive side of the ball. And without Aiyuk and looking at the rest of the stable of receivers the 49ers have assembled for this season, it just feels like they're not doing everything in their power to set Brock Purdy up for success and to take a step forward after losing the Super Bowl last season. Now, I think that they can still be a great team, and depending on who they acquire in a potential trade, they can still be the class of the NFC. They're still going to be the team to beat in the NFC. But I don't look at this situation, and I don't look at any of the potential trades, of course, without knowing who the 49ers would get in return. But I have an inkling that no matter what, the 49ers would be a weaker team trading Brandon Aiyuk away than they would be keeping Brandon Aiyuk and paying him the money that he wants to make this year and the next 3-4 seasons moving forward. And so it's time to evaluate those potential trade destinations and the potential trade packages that could be out there for Brandon Aiyuk. And I don't think the 49ers would make any kind of a move involving trading Aiyuk without getting at least one impactful player who can make their roster, whether it's at wide receiver or someone else on the depth chart, better in 2024. I just don't see a scenario where in early August, the 49ers are trading a wide receiver and only getting draft capital in return. If they were to do that, it would have made sense to do that entering the NFL draft. And that would tell you they have made a significant miscalculation if something like that were to happen. However, I do think that the different teams that have been discussed as potential landing spots for Aiyuk, whether it's Cleveland, New England, Pittsburgh, all have something to offer San Francisco. And it's not necessarily a ideal return. It's not necessarily the best possible package. And it's not necessarily a package that will make the 49ers just as good, if not better, in 2024. As I said, I am pretty much of the belief that they will be getting worse in trading Brandon Aiyuk without knowing exactly what it could be. But let's break down these potential landing spots, because I think that there are some intriguing options, assuming that this deal gets done, and there's some intriguing players who could be included in these potential deals to offset the loss of Brandon Aiyuk. I got into this last night when Matt Mayoko had the initial report that the 49ers had the framework of deals with the Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots, and the ball was kind of in Aiyuk's court at that point. They had set things up for him to evaluate the deals, negotiate potential extensions with these franchises, and figure out if he wanted to accept a trade to either destination. Now, it's been reported that Aiyuk's preferred destination is either Washington with the Commanders so that he could reunite with Jaden Daniels, or Pittsburgh with the Steelers. For whatever reason, the AFC team that is maybe most appealing to Aiyuk is in Pittsburgh. And so last night, Mayoko reports that Pittsburgh is not not planning on meeting the 49ers trade demands. And Adam Schefter essentially backed that up today on ESPN, saying, yeah, last night, the Steelers didn't want to meet the 49ers trade demands, but they have reconsidered things and restarted negotiations. The situation entirely fluid with Brandon Aiyuk as of this afternoon. So it's hard to rule out Pittsburgh at this point. But to me, the best possible destination, the best possible outcome, other than keeping Brandon Aiyuk in a 49ers uniform on an extension, would be a potential trade with the Cleveland Browns involving Amari Cooper coming back to San Francisco. And I say this for two reasons. Well, really three reasons. One, Amari Cooper is a receiver. You plug him in for Brandon Aiyuk, and you're not worried about the production that rookie Ricky Pearsall can give you. You're not worried about Juwan Jennings suddenly needing to step up and play a much more significant role, or Chris Conley taking far more snaps than you ever anticipated. You're just turning over those snaps to a proven 30-year-old wide receiver in Amari Cooper, who's gone over 1,000 yards 7 times in his career. Is he the same caliber player? I don't think so. Is he the same caliber blocker in the run game? Definitely not, but you are still getting someone who's proven that he can go up and get it, run over the middle of the field, and has made some outstanding catches throughout his NFL career. And so he is the one who kind of entices me in terms of a potential deal with the Cleveland Browns. Now, the second reason that Cooper entices me is because I mentioned this last night. He's playing in a system with head coach Kevin Stefanski that is not all that different from what the 49ers do with Kyle Shanahan. Stefanski kind of comes from a Shanahan-esque tree. He has that background. And so the situation where you're picking up an entirely different offense and learning a new scheme on the fly, it's maybe made a little bit easier. Of course, Shanahan is going to have stuff that's unique to San Francisco. Stefanski is going to have stuff that's completely different that you're running in Cleveland. But this is also a situation where I think, the 49ers would be in a position to, if they get this deal done within the next few days, and it does seem as if the 49ers and Aiyuk's camp are motivated to come to a resolution here, that they could conceivably figure out a way to get Cooper up to speed by week 1 and mitigate the potential loss by Aiyuk. Again, I'm not saying that the 49ers would recover all of that production, but maybe you're taking the smallest step back in terms of a deal with Cleveland. Now, I don't know if Cooper would definitely be involved in the deal. I don't know what the draft capital would be and if that would be worth, making sure that you can get a 2024 contributor. But the third reason that I like Cooper as a potential player involved in this deal, he's a free agent after this season. And so you don't have to worry about paying him beyond 2024. And the 49ers have a ton of salary obligations after this season, a ton of new contracts to rework. Brock Purdy's the obvious one, Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir. The list of free agents or guys who will need to be paid after this season goes on and on for the San Francisco 49ers. And so I think you're looking at a situation where if Cooper can come in and provide you some productivity in 2024, then come off the books and you rethink wide receiver next offseason, that might be ideal for San Francisco. Now, you look at the New England Patriots, and you've got a situation there where they just can't offer the 49ers what the Cleveland Browns can from a wide receiver perspective. So I think any Patriots offer, and there's been rumors that Kendrick Bourne could be in a potential deal returning to San Francisco. Look, I like Kendrick Bourne as a player. He's had some productive seasons in the NFL. He's had some productive seasons in San Francisco with the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, and maybe he's never had the quarterback in Brock Purdy, that the 49ers could give him anywhere else. But I think you'd be taking a step back from a talent perspective. And I also wonder, would the 49ers prefer a player at a different position on that New England roster to potentially come in instead of bringing in a wide receiver and say, hey, look, we think we can actually mitigate the loss of Brandon Aiyuk by upgrading a different position on our roster. And so I've seen some rumors floated out there, but that maybe Matthew Judon, the pass rusher who's upset with his contract situation over in New England, that he could be involved in a potential deal. We know that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch like to build through the offensive and defensive line. And so that's a situation where you're bringing in a proven pass rusher to bookend Nick Bosa. You've also got Leonard Floyd, who came in this offseason, Javon Hargrave, who you signed last offseason, expected to take another step forward this year. And so I think you're looking at a defensive line that would once again make the 49ers a ferocious front like they had way back in 2019, which is really what I think the best defensive front the 49ers had when you have Bosa and D Ford rushing the passer from opposite sides of the line of scrimmage. And so, again, I don't know if Judon could potentially be in that deal, but his is a name that I've seen floated out there that could kind of sweeten that package if the 49ers were to explore a deal with the New England Patriots. Now, the third team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I said this last night. The Steelers may not have wanted to play ball with the 49ers because I believe the 49ers would be asking for a lot from Pittsburgh. There's just not a ton on that Steelers roster that I think fits into what San Francisco and this 49ers team is trying to do in 2024. You look at the wide receiver position, and maybe you go after George Pickens. Like maybe he's the guy because he went over 1,000 yards last season. You're mitigating some of that production loss. But George Pickens is not known as someone who wants to get dirty and block. He is someone who I think, loves catching the ball on the sideline. Is he willing to go over the middle of the field? These are all questions that would have to be answered as soon as he arrives in San Francisco. And you could be in a situation where after this season, Pickens is again looking for a big contract in 2025 or 2026 if he's able to put up big numbers in San Francisco. And so you're just kicking this can down the road with having to pay another wide receiver. Other players I've seen thrown out there on social media from various people who cover the NFL, Calvin Austin, who's further down on that Pittsburgh wide receiver depth chart, James Daniels, an offensive guard for the Steelers. The 49ers could conceivably play him at the right guard position, understanding that John Feliciano and Spencer Burford have both been dealing with health issues or injury issues, I should say, during training camp. And then, kind of a home run is Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, of course, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can have him and George Kittle in two tight end sets. I think the 49ers would love that type of a situation, kind of beef up their blocking tight end. I do think is a little bit of a weak spot for the 49ers right now. And so you're looking at a situation where I think, if the 49ers are making the call to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to ask about including Freiermuth in that deal, even if it's not something that Pittsburgh would want to give up in a potential swap to get Brandon Aiyuk in there. Because again, they're weakening their own offense by doing a deal kind of like that one. And so all of that is to say, Brandon Aiyuk evaluating his deals, the 49ers evaluating their offers from different teams. They're both trying to find a match right now. And I still maintain that the fact that it's gotten to this point is a failure. I still maintain that the fact that it's gotten to this point is not good in the slightest for the San Francisco 49ers. I think it was Tim Kawakami of The Athletic who wrote a very strong column today saying that the fact that the 49ers have let things get here showed that this was a miscalculation on the part of John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Jed York, the owner. And I tend to agree. I tend to think that, we looked at this as the 49ers having all the leverage, but I look at it now as Aiyuk has a lot of leverage because the 49ers would miss a lot of what he brings to this roster. They'd miss the ability to go over the middle of the field, make tough catches. They'd miss that blocking on the perimeter, and they miss someone who kind of was a tone setter in the passing game for this team. And furthermore, maybe above all, they would miss Brock Purdy's number one target. And to me, that is the issue. The main issue for this ball club is you've got a situation where you've got a young quarterback who finally found his groove. Well, it didn't take him long to find his groove in the NFL, but is clearly ascending in the NFL and on the way up, finished fourth in MVP voting last year, and I think has even more to prove this year after coming off this first full healthy offseason. And to take away one of his top weapons, I think would be doing Purdy and the rest of this offense a major disservice. So I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to get the update that Brandon Aiyuk's been traded. I don't need that alert on my phone anytime soon. I want to get the news that the 49ers have come to a contractual agreement with him, that Aiyuk has passed up these offers to go elsewhere, and he decided, you know what, it's worth it to win in San Francisco and take a little bit less money with the 49ers to be happy, keep everything here, but doesn't seem to be trending in that direction. In fact, based on what Kyle Shanahan said today, told reporters and media, and what Christian McCaffrey said, both kind of talking about Brandon Aiyuk in past tense as if he was a former member of the organization. They didn't exactly do that, but it sure seemed that way. It doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well at all, and I have the feeling that I'm going to be disappointed because I maintained all offseason it was imperative the 49ers find a way to get a deal done with Aiyuk because of everything he means to this offense, everything he means to this franchise, and the fact that they've not been able to do so far, and the fact that they're exploring trades with other teams, that tells me that things have gone awry, that things are not right, and that ultimately the 49ers in 2024 may be a weaker offense than I once anticipated. Speaking of offense, if Brandon Aiyuk's not in San Francisco, who is the pressure on? We'll cover that when we come back. You're listening to Sports Zone KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
Sound right, boy. It sound right, boy.
So give us a ring or blow up the text line at 415-808-KNBR. This is Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/The Sports Leader.
All right, we're back here on Sports Phone KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock this evening. Our 49ers conversation continues. Now, for the second night in a row, we've been dabbling with the Brandon Aiyuk trade situation and the fact that the 49ers have presented Aiyuk with the opportunity to go get an extension and agree to a trade with another team as long as it fits with the 49ers and their objectives. And as I said last segment, I don't think, quite honestly, that any trade should fit with the 49ers objectives, because trading away the receiver who is most comfortable working with Brock Purdy, that's a step backward. That's something you don't want to do, particularly with about 34 days to go until the 49ers kick off on Monday Night Football against the New York Jets. Now, with that being said, it does seem as if this is headed in a direction where Brandon Aiyuk will not be a member of the San Francisco 49ers. It does seem like I'm bracing for a different kind of a reality here, and one where we have to consider what the 49ers would look like if Aiyuk is not on this roster in 2024. And as I mentioned last segment, we have no idea who would be coming in a potential trade. Amari Cooper's been floated as a name with the Cleveland Browns. Kendrick Bourne, if the 49ers get a deal done with the New England Patriots. I have no clue if the Pittsburgh Steelers are in on this, who the 49ers could potentially get in that deal. But regardless, I think that you look at the rest of the offense, and there are going to be a number of players in this hypothetical world where Brandon Aiyuk is not a 49er anymore, who are under even more pressure and even more scrutiny entering the 2024 season. And so an Aiyuk trade changes the dynamic for so much of what Kyle Shanahan in this offense is trying to accomplish this season. This is a 49ers team that has a target on its back. After winning the NFC title game last year, after making it to the Super Bowl, after putting the Chiefs on the brink, the 49ers are coming back, and it is oh so difficult to get back to that mountaintop. Talked for a long time this offseason about how I think that the window might be 2024, and then that's it. You know, maybe the 49ers are really able to extend this window longer than just about any team that hasn't won a Super Bowl can, if, you know, you get Brock Purdy under contract and he takes another step forward. But realistically, the decisions each offseason are only going to get more and more difficult. What you're seeing with the 49ers and their unwillingness to pay Brandon Aiyuk right now, things are going to not necessarily spiral out of control, but things are not getting any easier in future off seasons because of the salary obligations, because of the commitments, and because you're inevitably going to have to pay your starting quarterback if you're the San Francisco 49ers. And, you know, I fully anticipate that Brock Purdy will be making upward of $55-60 million on an average annual value basis. But a number of people on the Golden State Lumber text line, a number of people have called in over the last few weeks and said, what if he takes some sort of a cut to ensure that the 49ers can keep their roster together and make sure that the 49ers can surround Purdy with talent? And while I don't anticipate that happening at all, some sort of a cut does not look like the 49ers are adding 3 or 4 more impactful pieces to their roster. Let's say, hypothetically, Brock Purdy is only earning $45 or $50 million as opposed to $55 or $60 million. The 49ers aren't suddenly opening up salary that's going to be giving them the opportunity to provide Purdy and the rest of the offense with another game changer there. I just don't foresee things like that happening. And so I prefer to focus on what this offense will look like in 2024 instead of diving deep into the future here. I prefer to focus on the present and looking at what this offense will look like and who will be under the most pressure if Aiyuk is playing for another football team come week 1. And I think any list, realistically, because of the way we judge football teams, because of the way the NFL operates, any list has to start with Brock Purdy. Because the 49ers being unwilling to meet Aiyuk's contractual demands would be a sign that they have massive amounts of faith in Brock Purdy to deliver, even if his top weapon from a season ago isn't by his side. And yes, there may just be a number that they're not willing to meet. There may just be salary obligations that they feel they have to commit to other players if they're going to be a well-rounded roster. But I still believe that in trading away, giving up on Brandon Aiyuk, it puts even more pressure on Purdy to deliver, because you're taking away someone who was oh so good for him last season and someone who he's developed chemistry and trust with over the last 2 years. And you're saying, hey, Brock, good luck. And that's not to say that the 49ers are significantly weaker at every other position. They've still got Christian McCaffrey, albeit he's hurt right now. They've still got Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. We'll talk about those guys in a moment. They still drafted a wide receiver in the first round, of Ricky Pearsall. But I think we can all look at this situation objectively and say, if there's no Brandon Aiyuk, it puts more of an onus on Brock Purdy to get the job done, find open receivers, and they may be receivers who aren't quite as open. It may be Juwan Jennings. It may be Chris Conley. It may be Ricky Pearsall. It may be throwing into tighter windows this year because you don't have Aiyuk creating separation on the edge. And fair or not, if Aiyuk is not a member of the 49ers, come week 1 against the New York Jets, the pressure is going to ramp up even more on Brock Purdy to carry this team, because Aiyuk alleviated some of that pressure. Aiyuk gave him a safety blanket who we know he could go to when the 49ers needed a critical first down. But if he's not here, the expectations aren't going to be any lower for Brock Purdy. In fact, you could make the argument that the expectations will be even higher, because without him, the 49ers are still going to be viewed as a team that should and can reach the Super Bowl. And they're still going to view things internally as the Super Bowl is within reach. And so it just puts more pressure on Brock. Now, going down the list, if Aiyuk is not in San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey will also feel that pressure, as he should. The 49ers did not take long to get a deal done for Christian McCaffrey, reset the running back market. They worked quickly this offseason to make sure that McCaffrey got paid for his contributions to this franchise so far. It funded quite a wedding. I'm kidding, but Christian McCaffrey is going to feel it immensely, because Brock Purdy was always looking for Brandon Aiyuk on third down, was always looking to move the chains with him. Well, Christian McCaffrey is not only the leading ball carrier for this team, he's also a safety valve out of the backfield and someone who has established himself clearly as someone who can help the 49ers move the ball through the air throughout his NFL career. So much of his value, so much of the reason that Christian McCaffrey got paid by the 49ers in the significant way that he did is because of the fact that he offers them so much in the receiving game. He is the most well-rounded back in football, and the 49ers will rely on that even more if Aiyuk is not a member of this roster. So Christian McCaffrey right behind Brock Purdy, feeling that pressure. Now, as you go down the list of players who hypothetically would face even more pressure, even more scrutiny if Aiyuk is not a member of the 49ers, I think you're looking at that first-round draft pick, Ricky Pearsall, as someone who will face an immediate difference in the amount of pressure that he feels. Because with Pearsall on the roster and Aiyuk on the roster, there wasn't a clean avenue to giving Pearsall a ton of snaps this season. It wasn't as easy as saying, hey, we're just going to adjust our offense. We're going to run a lot more 11 personnel, and you're going to see Ricky Pearsall out there alongside Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel, and that's going to be it. No, I think the 49ers drafted Pearsall as someone who could make a contribution as a rookie, make some key catches as a rookie, but really take that step forward in year 2 when he was either going to step in and replace Aiyuk or replace Samuel. I don't think the 49ers plan to have both on the roster in 2025 when they made that draft pick. Now, that timeline's moved up, and 49ers fans expect, because Pearsall was a first-round draft pick, for him to fill in. And whether or not he can match Aiyuk's production, whether or not he can match Aiyuk's blocking, I have no idea. But I do know that fan expectations will be, hey, if the 49ers were comfortable moving on from Aiyuk, if it was really just a couple $1 million difference on an average annual value basis, then this Pearsall kid better be pretty good. And so far, rookie camp, Pearsall, injured. Training camp, injured. Walked off the field today with an injury. Shoulder that's hampered him. It's not ideal. Christian McCaffrey, dealing with a calf strain. He's going to be out a few weeks, won't play during the preseason. It's far from ideal. You do not want that before you've taken a single regular season snap. You do not want two key offensive contributors banged up before you've even put the pads on in the preseason. That's a really rough scenario for the 49ers to be in. And again, still extremely early. The 49ers in the Kyle Shanahan era have gotten off to rough regular season starts, and they've still overcome it to make deep playoff runs, make it to the Super Bowl, and again, prove that they can be a second-half team. But you would like the issues to be seen in week 3, week 4, week 5, and overcome them in week 6, week 7, and week 8, as opposed to the issues in the first and second weeks of training camp that have presented themselves this year. And so Ricky Pearsall, yes, if Brandon Aiyuk is not a member of the 49ers, he will be under immense pressure to deliver and help make up that production. That is the way that the NFL is judged. Fans expect when you trade someone and you've drafted someone who plays the same position, there's not going to be a significant drop-off. And Pearsall, I think, had a pretty nice situation that he'd inherited when he was going to play behind both Aiyuk and Samuel, and, the spotlight wouldn't be on him as a rookie. Well, that will change if Aiyuk is not a member of the San Francisco 49ers. The list, though, does not end at Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and Ricky Pearsall. It extends down to the 49ers starting tight end in George Kittle, who's been paid a lot of money and who I think does not have nearly the depth behind him right now that the 49ers may have had in recent seasons. Kittle has gone through a lot over the last few years from an injury standpoint, from an up and down, staying on the field standpoint. Last year, he played 16 of 17 games. He goes over 1,000 yards receiving, and the 49ers don't do a whole lot to shore up the tight end position behind him this offseason. I think that, in an ideal scenario, they'd have someone who could be a much better complement to him as a number 2, but you look at their depth chart right now, and it is hard to envision another tight end picking up, 2, 3, 4. It's hard to imagine another tight end on this roster picking up multiple catches in a given game. Maybe Logan Thomas if he's healthy because he has that track record. But again, you're bringing someone new into this system. Cameron Latu was the draft pick the 49ers pinned hopes on just a few years ago. And again, he was out last season with an injury. He dealt with drops in training camp last year. And it's just difficult to foresee him jumping into the mix and making a significant difference behind George Kittle. So I think the pressure is less on George Kittle from a production standpoint because we know when he's healthy, he produces at an elite level. He is one of the best tight ends in football, maybe the best tight end if you include his blocking skills. But with no Brandon Aiyuk, his ability to stay healthy and active every single game and his ability to go up over 1,000 yards, that will only come into more focus. So the hypotheticals, this list gets longer. No Brandon Aiyuk in San Francisco. 49ers could be in serious trouble as all these players who are already under immense pressure to produce and make sure the 49ers are playing at a high level. The list goes on, and I'll finish this list with a player who I think will feel some pressure, but not necessarily the same amount, and that's Deebo Samuel. In large part because the 49ers will need him to be their leading receiver this year. The 49ers will need him to take a step forward and kind of reclaim the form that he showed back in that 2021 season when he had 1,405 receiving yards and also 365 rushing yards. Last year, 892 receiving yards, 225 rushing yards, still up over 1,000 yards total from scrimmage. You'd like to see that number, if there's no Aiyuk, up over 1,500 yards from scrimmage this year. That would ensure that the 49ers will be able to mitigate the loss of Aiyuk. But all reports indicate that Deebo Samuel is in incredible physical shape. All reports indicate that this is someone who was not fazed in the slightest by the 49ers' potential motivation to trade him earlier this offseason when you saw those rumors circulating around the NFL draft. Deebo came into camp seemingly extremely happy with his situation in San Francisco. The 49ers should be grateful for that. They should feed him the ball early. They should do what they can to keep him healthy this year because Deebo Samuel also under more pressure if Brandon Aiyuk is not a member of this team. So you go down the list. It's all the players you know, but you reconsider their situations. Brock Purdy doesn't have his best receiver. Christian McCaffrey relied on even more in the passing game. You look at Ricky Pearsall, wasn't expected to play a major role in year one. That would change. George Kittle, you need him to rack up 1,000 receiving yards again. And then Deebo Samuel, well, he's just got to go out and be the 49ers' clear number one receiver. All of that leads to a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny. And oh, by the way, we're still 34 days out from the 49ers' first regular season game. So yeah, to say that this Brandon Aiyuk situation has been a tough development for the 49ers, I think that would be an understatement. This is a team coming off a run to the Super Bowl. This is a team with immense talent. It's a team that you don't want to see take a step backward during training camp, but that appears as if it could be the case. I'm Kerry Crowley. We roll on. On the other side, we'll wrap up this evening's show. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Phone KNBR. Dial the digits or send us a text at 415-808-KNBR. We're streaming on YouTube all damn day at KNBR 1045.
All right, Kerry Crowley back here with you on Sports Phone KNBR, wrapping things up this evening on what's been a relatively frustrating day in the Bay Area sports world. I think, we spent much of the last hour talking about Brandon Aiyuk and the trade requests and the trade possibility with the various teams right now. We've discussed and opened the show tonight following the San Francisco Giants 11-5 defeat to the Washington Nationals this evening, about how each time they take a step forward, they seem to take 2 steps back, and they finally got back to 500 yesterday for the first time in a long time. And yet today, with the opportunity to build upon some of that momentum from playing so well of late, they take that 4-0 lead, and Hayden Birdsong, the rookie, gives it right back. So that's also frustrating. And hey, Warriors fans were thrown kind of a wrench in their plans, as well as Lauri Markkanen, the Utah Jazz forward, who's been rumored as a top trade candidate for Golden State, maybe the one player who can really salvage this offseason. Shams Charania of The Athletic, Anthony Slater of The Athletic reported earlier today that Markkanen is expected to sign a huge long-term extension that will keep him with the Utah Jazz and, of course, take him out of any potential trade situation with the Golden State Warriors. So I guess that's where we're gonna wrap things up this evening. I'll go in a little bit more on the San Francisco Giants, but I do want to say, for as difficult of a day as it has been in the Bay Area sports world, it is worth noting that the Olympics have brought such joy, and I discussed this last week, but today in particular, got the opportunity this afternoon to watch the U.S. women's national team, the soccer squad, take on Germany in the semifinal, and Sophia Smith scored the game-winning goal in extra time. Very thrilling match, and the way that they finished that one off, really, really cool to see. So the U.S. playing for the gold medal match on Saturday. Not sure. I think it's going to be Brazil, their opponent, but again, big achievement for them. New coach Emma Hayes, so happy to see the U.S. advance there. Then was watching the track, and my goodness, I have loved every bit of track and field so far from the Olympics. I think that what they've got going in the stadium there in Paris is absolutely incredible, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. I know that a lot of you out there, we did this a little bit on the text line last week, discussed how you're swimming folks. I'm a track guy through and through. Watching the American Cole Hawker win in the 1,500 meter today with a time something like 3:27, beating the 2 favorites, one from a Scandinavian country and another from Great Britain. That was an incredible kick to end the 1,500 meter race that no one anticipated him to win. Another great unexpected gold medal for the United States. And then the 200-meter women's final was this afternoon as well. And Gabby Thomas, my goodness, she just ran away with that one. 200-meter women's final, and Gabby Thomas had it from the curve on. It was so impressive to watch her create some distance. Marcus Thompson, who, of course, joins us on our airwaves all the time, wrote an amazing story on Thomas and how she has cemented her legacy as an American track star in Paris this summer. And he wrote that for The Athletic, so I encourage you to go and check that out because that brought a ton of joy. And then Kevin Durant today became the all-time leading scorer for U.S. men's basketball in the Olympics. Through the years, Kevin Durant has always said yes to joining Team USA, and Team USA picking up a quarterfinal win over Brazil today. So well, it was a difficult day for the San Francisco Giants. Not the best day, of course, for the San Francisco 49ers. And the Warriors got news that they probably didn't want to receive. The red, white, and blue a really good day at the Olympics, and you continue to see great stories throughout. A name like Cole Hawker, who I had no idea who that man was until we saw him coming down the stretch in the 1,500 meters. What a race that really was. Like I said, U.S. women's soccer, U.S. men's basketball taking care of business. I don't know if anyone had the chance to watch Scottie Scheffler over the weekend, but the final round 9 under to tie the course record at wherever they're playing out in France. Incredible, and he wins the gold medal. So it's just been a really fun 2 weeks of watching the greatest of their craft do it. And speaking of other greatest of their crafts, Mondo Duplantis, the pole vaulting star, I don't know if anyone had the opportunity to watch him, but the guy set his own world record, or beat his own world record in Paris, which has to be an incomparable feeling. So went on and on last week about Katie Ledecky and Simone Biles and how much of a great time I had watching each of those two athletes at the Olympics. But I did kind of want to wrap up this evening's show talking about what the athletes who participated in track and field today had accomplished, and Gabby Thomas and Cole Hawker. And then, of course, finishing up with some final thoughts on the San Francisco Giants. So we'll do that right now as the Giants fall 11-5 to the Washington Nationals. And I kind of thought it was fitting that Tyler Fitzgerald led off the ninth inning tonight with a double because it put a runner in scoring position for the Giants and highlighted the issue in a 6-run ball game, a game that the Giants were going to lose in blowout fashion, that has become such a problem for this team. And really, I can't even say has become, it's been such a problem for this team throughout the entire regular season. One of the main reasons the Giants are now sitting at under 500, 57 and 58 after climbing back to 500 yesterday is their inability to hit with runners in scoring position. They had Tyler Fitzgerald out in the ninth inning against Tanner Rainey, a pitcher with an ERA over 6 for the Washington Nationals, who was essentially just throwing fastballs down the middle, and they couldn't bring him home. Elliot Ramos struck out swinging, Lamont Wade Jr. grounded out, and then Matt Chapman struck out swinging on a slider on the 7th pitch of his at-bat. So he did face 6 fastballs to start the at-bat before Tanner Rainey threw him the slider. But again, Giants unable to move the runners up, unable to bring the runners home, and unable to cash in on a night where they should have taken advantage of the fact that they punched Washington Nationals pitcher Mackenzie Gore in the mouth early in that ballgame. Ramos takes him deep to center field in the first inning. Then Conforto follows up later in the inning with a 3-run blast. Second time in 2 games, the Giants had hit a 3-run home run against the opposing starter. But tonight, the pitching staff gives it up. Hayden Birdsong, with the worst start of his young major league career, takes the first loss of his major league career. And this does highlight some of the issues with relying on 2 young pitchers in this Giants rotation, in Kyle Harrison, who had a bad start on Saturday against the Cincinnati Reds, and Hayden Birdsong. And it's one of the reasons I maintained that trading Alex Cobb didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that you're working with 2 pitchers here in Harrison and Birdsong who've shown impressive stuff. And I think that these guys will be really important pieces of the Giants' 2025 and 2026 rotations. But to rely on them in August and September, when you're trying to reach your full potential as a team, trying to get to the next level as a team, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me when you take away the insurance policy that existed in Alex Cobb. And you know that Robbie Ray is coming off of Tommy John surgery, and he's only going to be able to go about 5, maybe 6 innings at a time. It puts immense pressure on Blake Snell and Logan Webb to deliver every time they take the ball. And yes, they have so far since the trade deadline, but my goodness, the Giants have no margin for error, and they're seeing even that slip away from them right now. I mean, you're talking about a team that entered the night 4.5 games out in the wild card, sitting behind several other ball clubs in this National League wild card race. You've got the Diamondbacks, the Padres, the Braves, and then you've got the Mets, the Pirates, and the Cardinals as well. Those teams, the Pirates and the Cardinals, very much within striking distance. I could see the Giants tracking down the Mets and making it interesting, but the Diamondbacks are playing great baseball. The San Diego Padres are playing great baseball. The Atlanta Braves had a huge cushion over the Giants, and so you have to win these games. You have to take advantage of the opportunities that you have against teams that are worse than you in the standings. And the Washington Nationals came into this series after the trade deadline, which is when you want to see a team like the Nationals, with a roster with not a whole lot of experience. You know, this is a team that traded away Lane Thomas, that gave up some of its better players at the deadline, and doesn't have a group that's going to compete much in August and September right now. And so to lose tonight when you get that 4-0 advantage and you get so many different runners in scoring position, I think it's just a really rough look for this Giants ball club, and underscores the issue that we've seen all season long. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Every time you think that this team has an identity, I said it last night, I really felt like starting pitching would be this ball club's identity with the way that these pitchers had kind of rolled through the last week or so. Then all of a sudden something changes, something makes you say, wait, hold on a minute. And you take 1 step back, zoom out, and you realize that 47 games to go, this Giants team is going to have to go what? About 31-16 to really make a move here. I mean, that would put them at 88 wins, so maybe it's not 31-16. But if you want to get to 85 wins, you're talking about 28-19 right now. So you've got to go 9 games over 500 down the stretch. And I'm not even sure that 85 wins will get you to where you need to be. Maybe it is 88 wins with the pace that the Padres are on, with the pace that the Diamondbacks are on, the pace that the Braves are on right now. I don't think that, like last year when the Diamondbacks won the National League pennant, with 84 wins in the regular season, that you're going to see a similar scenario this year. I think that while the top of the league might not be as strong right now, we've seen the Dodgers falter a little bit in the last month or so. The Phillies have taken a huge step back in the last month. I don't think that the middle of the league is as bad as it was a year ago. It's a mushy middle. I've said all season long, mediocrity is pervasive in the National League, but I also think that there's going to be a number of teams that eclipse 86, 87 wins, and each passing day makes it look more difficult for the Giants to get to that number when they drop a game like they do tonight. It's why a loss like tonight's hurts so much. You can't take a 4-0 advantage when you have a rookie pitcher on the mound and give that up, and that's exactly what the Giants did in the second inning tonight. Hayden Birdsong floats one well above the strike zone to C.J. Abrams, and he takes him deep, and the Nationals erase that 4-0 deficit, turning it into a 5-0 lead, and they never look back from that point forward. Mackenzie Gore, who had given up 4 first-inning runs, he ends up winning this ball game, which is just a real tough blow to take for the San Francisco Giants. Birdsong only gets through 2, which means the Giants are going to be scrambling out of the bullpen for the rest of this series, and that is really tough because you're talking about a 4-game set before coming back to San Francisco with no off day. The Giants' next off day isn't until what? Next Friday at home, because you've got the Detroit Tigers this weekend in San Francisco. Then you've got the Atlanta Braves for 4 games in San Francisco. And you don't have a day off until Friday, August 16th before you go on the road to take on the Oakland Athletics at the Coliseum for the last time. And so you're talking about a pitching staff that optioned Spencer Bivens today to Double-A Richmond, which means Bivens can't come back for 10 days, barring an injury, which exhausted Randy Rodriguez today. He goes 2 2/3, giving up 6 hits, somehow manages to allow just 1 run. You get Taylor Rogers in that ballgame, but Sean Jelly also goes 2 2/3. So tomorrow you may see Jordan Hicks out of the bullpen. You may see him out of the bullpen in an extended stint if things go haywire for the Giants, but they've relied so heavily on Ryan Walker, Tyler Rogers, and Camilo Doval, and Doval did get that 8-day break. So you could have a situation where Doval is pitching after, of course, closing out last night's ballgame with the save, even if the Giants aren't in a save situation in tomorrow's ball game, because they are simply short on bullpen arms who can be trusted, who are reliable. And again, this is another issue with their post-trade deadline strategy. You're relying on a lot of young pitchers, and when those young pitchers and or pitchers coming back from injury like Robbie Ray don't give you the quality innings that you need, it stretches out an already exhausted bullpen and compromises your opportunities moving forward. So the best advice I can give the Giants: run away with tomorrow's ball game against the Washington Nationals. Anything less would be a disappointment. Anything less than a series win would be a disappointment in D.C. The Giants have been abysmal on the road all year long, but they started this road trip with 3 wins in their first 4 games, highlighted, of course, by the no-hitter that Blake Snell threw on Friday evening against the Cincinnati Reds. So you would like to see them continue to provide some hope, some optimism, and make sure that it's not 1 step forward, 2 steps back for all 162. Because if it is, there's going to need to be some changes made at the end of this season. So I'm Kerry Crowley, wrapping things up here on Sports Phone KNBR. I want to thank everyone who called in, contributed to tonight's show. I want to thank our producer, Kyle Haar, doing a great job. Everyone behind the scenes at KNBR, making things run smoothly. As always, we appreciate you, the loyal listener here on KNBR. I will be back with you tomorrow evening after the Giants take on the Nationals. Game 3 of this 3-game set coming your way at 3:45 Pacific time tomorrow afternoon. It means you get a shorter Tolbert and Copes. They will go from 2 to 2:45 before we give you our full Giants pregame tomorrow. So I'm Kerry Crowley saying so long, thanking all of you for tuning in. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 680, the sports leader.